Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Best Damn Pod in the Land. I am your host and sports director, Brian Nelson, and with me I have...
The one, the only, me and Griffin being dressed fly as hell today because we had an exclusive sit-down with Gene Smith. If you haven't seen that yet, check it out. But yeah, we went with the suit and tie for the occasion. Mm-hmm. Andy Andrews, your assistant sports editor.
I was about to say, what's your name?
He's just the one and only. That's it.
I'm the assistant sports director, Khalid Hashi.
And I'm holding a microphone like this, and it probably looks pretty goofy, but we're rocking with it today. Griffin Strom, sports editor.
Not Griffin Stewart, just Griffin Strom.
Griffin Stewart.
All right.
Stewart.
And we have quite the fun game to recap and quite the fun game to preview. Ohio State beat Penn State 28-17, and this weekend is the game against Michigan. Last game of the regular season before the Big Ten Championship and then bowl game season. So it's a lot of fun, a lot of stuff to look at. We're going to try and keep it somewhat short because we all want to go home. But let's get right into it. Andy, Ohio State, Penn State, what are your takes from that?
Well, overall, I think on its surface, you'd say Ohio State played actually a four-quarter game and didn't fully dominate a team for the first time this season, 28-17. But really, the fact that they turned the ball over 3 times and Penn State scored those 3 times as quickly as they did to cut the lead to 4. Then Ohio State comes out, gets the touchdown real quick, and we saw for the first time they had to answer in a situation. Got that answer, that catch by Chris Olave. That was so beautiful in the end zone on a nice throw by Justin Fields. And then to hold them, the defense really was suffocating in this game. I mean, Penn State only had one scoring drive that was longer than 12 yards.
Yeah.
When you think about it. So that they had that one touchdown drive that went, I think it was 75. And when they were down 21-0, and then the Ohio State fumbles not only gave Penn State short fields to get 10 of their 17 points, but took a touchdown away from the Buckeyes directly. We saw Justin Fields fumble it going into the end zone. So really, it was a dominating performance by Ohio State when you consider if they don't make those same stupid turnovers, which were an anomaly, right? That hasn't been an issue this season before. If they don't make those same stupid turnovers going forward, it's as dominant a performance as what they did against Wisconsin or Michigan State. That's just my thoughts. A Griffin.
Yes, Andy, and I'll throw it right to Khalid. I'll go right back to you.
Go right.
No,
hot potato. This.
I guess my biggest takeaway was it was Chase Young's first game back, and everyone was obviously expecting a big game, and once again, he delivers. He had the Walter Camp National Defensive Player of the Week honors with his 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, I believe, and 9 tackles?
9 tackles. 9 tackles.
Which is very impressive. So clearly he hasn't fallen off. And I think, honestly, with that performance, he probably put himself right back into the Heisman contention. I know everyone counted him out as soon as the suspension was put on him, but after that performance, who knows?
He got back in.
Yeah, just to add on to what Clint is saying, 9 tackles is a game high, career high for Chase Young. That's the most he's ever had in one game. And his 3 sacks he got have now put him over Vernon Golston for the single season sack record for Ohio State. He now holds that with 16.5.
After missing 2 games.
After missing 2 games, and he still has at least 3 games guaranteed left in the season. Maybe 4, depending on where Ohio State ends up in the playoffs and if they win the semifinal game. He
could arguably have one of the greatest defensive, or actually just overall college football seasons ever. He's really doing that with missing 2 games. Just the thought of what his numbers could have looked like had he not missed 2 games is just ridiculous. He would probably be well over 20 sacks with those 2 games under his belt. So that's just kind of ridiculous. I think he's back into the Heisman contention right now. And honestly, I would put Justin Fields right up there in the top 3 with Joe Burrow.
Well, yeah, going off of that, that's kind of my takeaway was we saw Justin Fields get unleashed on Penn State's defense. We talked about how Ryan Day was just saving Justin Fields and keeping him healthy for the big games because of the lack of quarterback depth Ohio State has.
Right.
And Penn State was finally the game where we saw him pop off and really just showcase his skill. He had several key 3rd down and 4th down rushes and QB runs that really elevated Ohio State's offense to the point where Penn State just couldn't stop them, aside from the turnovers.
And it kind of begs the question: how much are they going to run? Are they going to run Justin Fields 20 times in each game moving forward?
It's a lot of wear.
Yeah, it's a lot of wear and tear.
And you even saw at the end of the game, Justin Fields did go down for a moment, which was quite frightening to the Buckeye faithful there in Columbus. But he did spring up to his feet eventually, and Ryan Day said he's going to be fine. But, you never really know, Guys are always playing hurt. And I guess that will be answered for us on Saturday, so just seeing how much and how early if they run Justin Fields.
Yeah.
How much he was influenced by the wear and tear in that game against Penn State.
Well, they weren't, and again, all 21 carries weren't designed runs. I think he had to scramble a number of times, and really some of his escapability was phenomenal, just to make something out of nothing. Some of it was also good O-line protection, like he had time. There was, again, I think now we've started to see the one and only weakness that you can point to on this Ohio State team so far, taking the turnovers as an anomaly, something that's been consistent an issue in big games, pass protection. We've seen 4 or 5 sacks. And it's not a consistent dilemma. It's not something you point at and say, oh, Fields is just under fire every play. I don't think when teams send 3, 4, 5 guys, it's not an issue because they aren't beating the lineman one-on-one per se.
Right.
It's just those complex blitzes that Wisconsin and Penn State.
Yeah, just credit to Penn State's defensive line. They were one of the best in the country, and they came at Ohio State with everything they got. And when you have people like Yetur Gross-Matos playing, you're going to get into the backfield.
Shaka Toney, yeah.
Shaka Toney. You're going to get in the backfield. Like, it's hard. It's just impossible to stop them. Same goes for people like Chase Young.
And it's not even just that's causing all these sacks. I believe that Justin Fields has kind of gotten away from throwing the ball away. And you saw Ryan Day say that a couple times in his post-game press conference that he would have liked to see Justin Fields get rid of the ball. And I feel like, obviously, Justin Fields and Ryan Day probably had a conversation like, hey, listen, this is a big game. We saved you. Now it's time to unleash your talent on the ground. And we just saw Justin Fields kind of in the pocket, a little holding onto the ball a little way too long. And obviously they have a great defensive line over at Penn State. So it's kind of a mixture of great blitzes and packages to where he was under pressure, but at the same time, he was kind of holding the ball a little longer than we're accustomed to seeing.
Well, yeah, I think that's a really good observation, Clint, and the fact that I do think, like you said, Ryan Day will have a sit-down with Fields, and it ties in with the greater theme of this game. I think this was the perfect time for Ohio State to actually have to play a 4-quarter game, to actually have to face adversity in a game, because you're going to be going to Ann Arbor next week. If you had laid another smackdown on Penn State, I know this team has been laser-focused, locked in for every game so far, but you lay another smackdown on Penn State like that, and you do, in the deepest pit of your soul perhaps, get a little too overconfident, get a little too cocky, get a little too, look at how great we are.
Right.
Now, and the parallel that's been drawn all week by me and by some other analysts out there, some other bigger analysts out there, is this game coming up, this rivalry game, which I know I'm jumping ahead, previewing it a little bit, in the 1969 game, right? Ohio State rode into that game undefeated, had demolished everybody, clearly looked like the best team in the country. A first-year head coach was involved on Michigan's side. This year it's on Ohio State's side. Michigan had been struggling against Ohio State for a little bit, had been blown out the previous year, I should say. And Michigan pulled a huge upset. Some consider it the upset of the century. They were ranked 12th, so I don't know if I'd say that. But a major upset against one of maybe Woody's best team in Ann Arbor, 24-12, denied Ohio State a Rose Bowl bid, a Big Ten title. And so now you don't have that same dominance, and you can lose a game, potentially. Right. Like if Penn State goes in and scores a touchdown instead of a field goal after that third fumble that Fields had, that momentum is completely flipped. You could have seen Penn State win that game if that defense doesn't stiffen up. And it was a great overall, like we said, great overall performance by Ohio State's D. But you have a lot of those teachable moments now to say, look, we're human.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can lose a game. Yes. So let's not take any of this for granted.
And I feel like, honestly, this game, as if Justin Fields is truly okay and it's nothing more serious than he's just a little banged up or anything, I think that was a perfect game for Ohio State to have. And clearly the committee in the college football playoffs respects that kind of game from Ohio State because they allowed Ohio State to jump LSU, even though a lot of people were saying, oh, this was a sloppy win versus Penn State. No, it was just they were smacked in the mouth, and Ohio State responded. And it was a top 10 matchup of a game. And the committee actually respects Penn State because they only dropped 2 or 1 spot down to number 10. So it's like that was a real test, and I feel like Ohio State, that's going to help them going forward.
Jumped them to number 1 too, and you've got 2 top 15 teams left, and you wonder, is there any possibility that LSU would reclaim that top spot if Ohio State wins these last 2 games?
We'll get into that a little later, though.
Yeah, we can get into that later because it's the resumes between Ohio State assuming they went out and LSU assuming they went out and beat Georgia in the SEC championship. It's tough. It's really tough. But yeah, I just kind of like going off of what you guys have been saying. I don't think this is necessarily a sloppy one for Ohio State. I think they made mistakes for maybe the first time we've seen in a long while. But the fact that they still won by 2 possessions over a top 10 team with 3 turnovers is incredible.
And honestly, I feel like the score doesn't really tell the whole story of this game because honestly, let's be real, if Justin Fields doesn't fumble at the goal line, this game could have been a blowout.
Yeah, it would have been 21-0 at halftime.
And not only that, it was Penn State was totally backpedaling up to that point. If they came out their first possession, went 3 and out. Ohio State went right down the field, scored a touchdown, drove. Well, they didn't go 3 and out. They went 3 and out their first possession. Second possession, they drove a little bit, but still had the punt. Ohio State drives right back down the field and is about to go up 14-0. They had complete control of that game, and that fumble kind of hit a wall.
Yeah.
They scored 1 more touchdown in the first half, but they were dominating Penn State in terms of yardage that entire first half. By the way, great 4th and 5 conversion while we're on that second touchdown drive. Every week I've said this, I swear. Ryan Day threw something we'd never seen before. Empty set, quarterback draw. You had 5 O-linemen and a quarterback versus just 5 Penn State defenders, and it was beautifully executed.
In addition, Fields made some 2 beautiful touchdown passes to KJ Hill and Chris Olave. Like, those passes are just game changers, not only to getting points on the scoreboard, but just really just kill momentum for the other team. Those were beautiful throws, and Chris Olave had some beautiful catches this game.
Well, yeah. Particularly
the touchdown. I'm just saying.
I didn't know he had that in him, to be honest.
Yeah.
Such
Really?
a little guy, fast, and he's more of a
He's made some catches earlier this year.
Yeah, but to moss a guy like that, I was like, wow, okay, that's impressive.
I don't know. I was telling Andy that I would trust Chris Olave with my life during the game because I don't know. There's just something dependable about him. He's like a humble guy.
No,
Yeah,
and he'll do anything for the team.
Yeah.
He's
He
out
never
there
makes
on
anything
special
of himself.
teams making onside kick recoveries and blocking punts when they need him to.
Yeah.
You just do everything. Humble, real hard worker. It seems.
Yeah, and I think he'll start to get talked about a lot more, especially going into next season, as well, with people starting to actually recognize what he's doing at Ohio State. And he almost had another insane catch earlier in the game. As a matter of fact, I personally thought it could have been called interference on that first one where he nearly came up with it. And the cornerback there, I think, got to him just a little bit before he got the ball. So they could. I mean, there was kind of a toss-up on that call, but they didn't call it. He still nearly came up with it, though, and then he kind of atoned for that one later on with that amazing catch in the right corner of the end zone.
Yeah.
And that was the one that stopped the momentum for Penn State as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You're not going to catch every single pass.
Big players make big plays.
Unless you're Michael Thomas, you're not going to catch everything thrown at you.
Olave's that guy that can step up when you need him most, and he did it against Michigan last year too. I really think you could see him in a close game like what happened Saturday. He's the clutch receiver so far that we've seen for Ohio State. Yeah. Maybe KJ as well falls into that category.
I think KJ is just the most consistent receiver on the team. You can always count on him to make maybe not necessarily the biggest play, but just a really good play that'll just move you forward 10 yards. Mm-hmm. And then he can still easily make the big plays too, because KJ Hill is a fantastic wide receiver. But kind of
is a fact, Brian. That is actually a fact.
It's a fact. Thank you very much, Griffin.
KJ is actually about to break how many catches? He's 4 or 5 catches away from.
He's 6.
Six?
Right?
6
He needed 48 to break it coming into this year. He's 6 from the career record at Ohio State.
I think. Yep,
it's 6 catches.
It's only fitting he'll get it against Michigan.
6
he's
receptions.
Gonna catch 6 receptions.
I think he.
I don't know if Ohio State's necessarily going to throw a ton against Michigan because Michigan's pass defense is better than their run defense.
I don't think you run J.K. Dobbins into the ground against Michigan.
I think you do. I think that's been the strategy of this team all year. Why deviate?
If they weren't going to do that, Penn State had one of the best running defenses in the country.
Wisconsin.
And J.K. Dobbins still had 36 carries.
Yeah, right. I don't think he'll. I think he'll get probably 20, 22 carries. I think he'll still get his regular carries, but I just don't think they'll run all of a sudden more than they will pass. So we'll see, though.
Not to
That's what
mention
they've
91
done.
yards on the opening drive.
This is the game. It's about to be on national stuff. I think Justin Fields is going to get his chances to air it out a little bit.
It's going to be
I think they'll get
the weather, too, though. I just don't.
It depends on the weather, honestly.
I just don't. I really we said it against Penn State. Penn State was stronger on run defense than they were pass defense, and the advantage was a lot bigger than Michigan's is. Michigan still has a good run D.
Right.
Penn State's, or not a good run, a good pass D.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Yeah, just throwing out some stats to put this in perspective for you viewers. Michigan has a number 4 total defense in the country and a number 4 pass defense in the country and the 13th best running defense in the country.
Right. Penn State's had a huge advantage on pass defense, right? Their pass defense was the hole for Ohio State that we said Ohio State could exploit last week with its great wideouts. Penn State's rush defense was so much stronger, and they came out and ran the ball right down Penn State's throat. So I don't see them deviating from that game plan, except if Don Brown is coming out with some crazy blitzes and isolating the receivers. Then Day's going to be smart enough to react to that.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely think we're going to see Fields make some plays because, again, I think the last thing Ryan Day wants to do is have Ohio State's offense be one-dimensional and just strictly relying on the run. But I think what they're going to do is, again, just use the run to spread the field open so when you do go to the pass, if the weather is bad, it's going to be impactful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Another thing, though, is, and Ryan Day did point this out because I think he was almost for the first time after the game receiving a little bit of criticism because you did see Fields take that hit at the end of the game when Ohio State went for it on 4th down. And Ryan Day was saying he should have thrown it out of bounds rather than take that hit. I know on Twitter when I tweeted that out, a lot of people were saying, well, a lot of Buckeye fans were saying, well, we wish he would have just kicked the ball or ran a different play rather than putting Fields out there like that in a situation where he didn't really need to be. But Fields, a lot of the time, and it goes back to the kind of weak pass protection, relative to everything else, relative to every other team in the country.
Yeah.
Fields does scramble. He scrambles and he has to make plays on his feet a lot. It's not all. He didn't have 20 designed rushes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He is doing a lot of this on his own because it is a strength of his. But as we know, that type of tendency for a quarterback can get you hurt pretty easily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when you look at what happened to Tua for Tagovailoa for Alabama, it's just something that's in the back of your mind when you're watching these games because you could still say that Alabama is maybe a top 5 team in the country, but without Tua, are they going to win the national championship? Mm-hmm. It's tough,
Yeah.
Facts.
And that's even disregarding their loss to LSU.
Run that back.
Excuse me there.
Excuse me.
Excuse you, sir.
I guess he doesn't like me talking about Alabama. Understandable.
All right, so why don't we just kind of jump into our full preview then of Michigan?
Yeah.
We've kind of been hitting on it.
So repeat that because you were not talking to the mic.
Let's kind of jump into our full preview of Michigan then now, since we've been talking about it a little bit.
Yeah, we were kind of going back and forth in the Penn State.
Right. But just to focus fully now on this game coming up, I already drew the parallel with 1969. I think that the motivations factor of this game, that Michigan has nothing else to play for. This is their entire season, right? They don't have the stakes that Ohio State is playing for, potential college football playoff. And Ohio State could lose this game and still make the college football playoff, right? Some larger ambitions coming.
Yeah.
But I just don't see Ohio State in this team the way they've been dialed in all year coming out flat in any way and not being up for this. And Ryan Day has maintained the same Michigan focus. Anyone who thinks Ohio State is saving anything for playoff ambitions is fooling themselves.
Yeah.
They will run Fields as much as necessary. They will run Dobbins as much as necessary. They will do whatever is necessary to win this game.
And they're going to unleash that defensive line.
However, I will say that there are a couple things that could happen in this game that could swing it in favor of Michigan. It's on the road, and it's Ohio State's first true road test. I know Nebraska was a tough environment, but they extinguished Nebraska quickly. Nebraska wasn't what we thought they were. They're in the big house. Is the O-line going to hold up? Is the crowd going to become a factor? You could see that impact the game. And I'm predicting a heavy win for Ohio State here. And I'm just saying this is the first game all season where I've sat back and I said, I could see them losing. Yeah. I could see them losing. The other thing is, how healthy is Fields?
Right.
We don't know for sure. If he is hampered to where he can't scramble as effectively, if it's just like if he's got a rolled ankle, if he's got is his wrist causing him enough pain. I know it's his non-throwing hand, but do those things hinder his abilities, or even, if aggravated, knock him out of the game? Because that totally changes things. As we've said all year, it's the one player that this team can't afford to lose, and if they lose him or he's hindered, that could swing the game.
Honestly, I feel like Ryan Day just kind of got a little in over his head last week with, all right, listen, Justin Fields, go ahead, do your thing. I'm not holding you back. Do whatever you want kind of thing on the field. And I feel like after seeing how he kind of got beat up towards the end of that game, Ryan Day's going to just slow down a little bit on the usage of Justin Fields and have a better game plan as to how Ohio State can still beat Michigan without abusing their quarterback. Because let's be honest, like we've talked about all year long, that quarterback depth is very, very thin. But the reason why I don't think there's honestly a real chance that for Michigan to beat Ohio State is because I feel like this is Ryan Day's first big rivalry game against Michigan, and you have to put your stamp on this game. This is a time for Ryan. I mean, all of Ohio State fans and everyone around the country knows that Ryan Day's been a great coach. He's done an exceptional job with this team. But this game probably means more to him than I feel like any of the players, because it's your first game. You can't lose your first game against Michigan, because then everything you've just done honestly has
an asterisk.
Yeah. You know?
Another thing factoring in that we haven't brought up yet that I think really is the most impactful is I don't think Michigan's offense is going to be able to score on Ohio State's defense.
Yeah.
Because Michigan's offense is ranked 69th in the country. And Ohio State's defense is number 1 in the country. Michigan, it's a rivalry game, so I think Michigan will maybe play up to Ohio State's talent level in competition. And I think Michigan can make some good plays because offensively they have been playing very well recently. You know,
they're surging.
They're surging. Look what they did to Indiana. Look what they did to Notre Dame. Even against Penn State, they still played very well at the end of that game. They have a very good offense, but they haven't faced a defense like Ohio State's.
Right. No, Penn State's is the only one that's even comparable. Notre Dame's defense hasn't been good this year. Indiana's defense obviously hasn't been good this year. And, we saw it firsthand. Indiana's offense has been good. That's why they're, they're going to finish 8-4 right about?
Something like that.
8-4, 9-3. They've
Phoenix sure can spin one.
I think the main exploit, and I've talked about exploits the past couple of weeks when previewing games, the main exploit for Ohio State is that their defensive coordination is so much smarter and more versatile than last year. And the run game for Michigan sucks. It's been bad. They're 78th in the country. They don't have a true defined standout back. I know Charbonnet's made some plays, but he really hasn't been consistent. Patterson hasn't been consistent enough as a dual threat, I think, to really have that sort of dynamic impact on the game. So the fact that their defense can trot out so many different personnel packages this year, as opposed to last when they just had to do the one thing, and if it didn't work, then it wasn't working. Mm-hmm. They can trot out so many different personnel packages, so many different formations, man, zone, whatever the look you need to go to stop this team. And they will force them to be one-dimensional. They will force Patterson and this elite crop of receivers they have to beat them through the air, because they can play more guys in the backfield because of the weakness of Michigan's run game. Right. You only need to send 4. You only need to you might be able to keep one less guy in the box. You might be able to have
not even 4. Look at what Ohio State did at the end of the Penn State game, where they were rushing 3 and were still getting in the backfield.
Right. That's a fact.
Maybe you send in instead of a Sam linebacker on a play, you have a Seven Banks or a Cameron Brown in there as extra pass coverage. Michigan has 4 really good wide receivers. 2 of them are NFL caliber. And that's their main strength, I think, on offense, now that they finally figured out and started throwing to those guys. Yeah. But when you're one-dimensional against a defense like Ohio State, it doesn't matter, because they have the talent, when they can scheme against one thing, to shut it down. And you have to do a number of things well to beat an offense.
Going off of that, Michigan has very good wide receivers, but I don't think Shea Patterson is enough of a playmaker to fill out the wide receivers' potential that they have.
However, Shea Patterson is the first Michigan quarterback in history to throw for back-to-back 450-yard games.
Oh no, Shea Patterson is
he's a good quarterback.
He's a very good quarterback, but I kind of researched this when I was working on my column for the rivalry edition, but Shea Patterson's good, but has comparable or worse numbers than Jack Cohn from Wisconsin.
Wow.
Same with Penn State and their quarterback.
Clifford.
Sean Clifford. Yeah, same with his numbers are on par with them or a little worse.
Well, look at what he's done when he's faced actual tough defenses. 14 for 32 against Wisconsin. That's 44% completions. At least he hasn't. One thing he doesn't do is turn the ball over. Only 5 interceptions on the year. Hasn't thrown more than one interception.
Justin Fields
Hasn't thrown more than one interception in a game. He's not going to lose it with his arm. But I mean, against Illinois, he finished with 50%. Notre Dame, he only threw the ball 12 times against Notre Dame. I think their backup came in.
Well, also the weather was really bad.
The weather was really bad, but Michigan. I guess Michigan State has Michigan State's main weakness on their defense is the secondary. He did complete 73% of his throws there. He's been hot lately. I just think the only tough defense he's really faced is Wisconsin, and he did not perform well. And Iowa a little bit, but Iowa also 54%, no touchdowns at a pick.
Yeah, Iowa's just a tough defense in general.
I don't think he's seen a defense the caliber of Ohio State's, and I think that combined with the fact that, like I said, Ohio State can play more to the pass, they're going to make Michigan one-dimensional because they're going to shut down the run game, I think, and Michigan's running style has always been bad against Ohio State in recent years. So that all combines to me for why I see Ohio State handling this game.
Mm-hmm. So, how many sacks do we think Chase Young is going to have? Just curious, what you guys think?
Max 2.
Max 2.
I think 3 again.
I'm with 3 again.
I'll go 3, maybe 4. Depends on how the looks that Ohio State throws out there. If they're trying, because if Michigan gets forced to being just like purely one-dimensional going to the pass, and you could see Young getting back there really fast.
Right. I think Ohio State grabs an early lead, they're going to be throwing the ball more too.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, though, I can't see this being the craziest Chase Young game we've ever seen, and a
cementing his
Michigan and Ohio State classic where Chase Young goes off for some ridiculous number of sacks, 6 or something like that.
Not even that, but kind of going off of that, we mentioned how good Michigan's wide receivers are. But Michigan also hasn't faced a secondary as good as Ohio State's, where you have people like Jeff Okudah, Sean Wade, Damon Arnett, and Jordan Fuller that are coming at you. It's going to be very tough for Michigan to make those plays, especially with Shea Patterson at quarterback.
Those in Ann Arbor have actually dubbed him Shea Passerson after the last 2 games.
Passerson.
I think he'll make some passes. I think he'll make some plays. I just don't think Michigan has the talent to overcome the amount of talent Ohio State has.
You're really proud of yourself for that one.
Yeah, it's very funny. It's very funny.
I think the weakness on Michigan's defense again is I know they've added zone. I brought up in my preview of the game that what Ohio State did to them to exploit their defense in 2018 is simply just figure out that Don Brown's defense really wasn't well schemed last year to scale
Dr.
against
Blitz,
good teams.
Someone called
Dr. Blitz. No, that's his actual nickname. Very good at designing these blitzes, right? But he just left guys isolated in man coverage. And when you've got the athletes Ohio State does, and the quarterback gets an extra half second to throw the ball because he's got a better own line, you get it away to a Chris Olave, and he dashes to the end zone.
Yeah.
But they've mixed in some more coverages this year. I just don't. I still think it's too aggressive. That you can take advantage, and Day has always been smart enough to counterpunch whatever he needs to through pass coordination. Right, him and Yurcich have done phenomenal when they've needed to, coordinating a good passing attack. And I think they will find ways to take advantage of some of those aggressive Michigan blitzes and maybe have some checks with Fields in certain looks. They're going to want to establish the run game still, I'm sure, and we'll see how that works out. We know Michigan's run defense is slightly weaker. And I think this is a game that probably ends up grinding. It won't be a first. I don't know if Ohio State will take control right away, but they'll definitely wear on the Michigan defense eventually.
Let me just say from watching I've been watching several the past few years' games, and what I've noticed in those games is that in some of those years you see that either the Ohio State offense or defense is particularly lacking in those matchups. For example, in 2016, the Ohio State offense just did not look good, frankly.
No.
And it was kind of the same case.
They were bad.
Yeah. Same case in 2017 as well. I would say for the most part.
Till Haskins came in.
Yeah. And then in 2013, it was the offense looked great. The defense looked just putrid. And
you saw that same defense exposed by Clemson in the Orange Bowl.
Yes. And this season, though, you haven't seen either side of the ball exposed really at all for Ohio State. I mean, like we talked about against Penn State, it was really just those turnovers that even allowed Penn State in the game in the first place. You know what I mean? And you can't fault the defense when the opposing offense is getting the ball in the red zone. That can't be just placed all on the defense when they score 2 touchdowns.
And you're having like back-to-back drives when you have to be on the field with like no time.
Well, it's a
rest
credit to the
recuperate.
defense that they only gave up 17 under those circumstances.
Right, exactly.
So, I don't.
So I just think in past years, I just think it really solidified my opinion that this Ohio State team is just the best Ohio State team in years. Watching those past games, and
best I've seen since 2006 when 2006 was playing at its top level.
Yeah, and I mean maybe in this game, one side of the ball or something does get exposed from Ohio State. But from what I've seen so far, I mean, in comparing them to those past Ohio State teams, I'm just like, man, this team is just so much more complete than a couple of those teams from this past years in these Michigan games.
Absolutely. So, anything else?
Score predictions,
We
fellas?
gotta get score predictions.
Yeah, we already
We already told each other, but we haven't told the world.
Yeah, we gotta do our
Correct.
score predictions.
What did I say?
All right, I'll go first. I remember. So, like I said, I know earlier I did state this, and I still stand by it. You're about to hear my score prediction and maybe laugh. Those of you who have stuck around this long, I do think this is the first game that I see a path to victory for the team Ohio State is playing. I don't see that happen. I think if these teams played 10 times, Ohio State would win 9 of them. But that being said, I think the mismatches I talked about earlier, the fact that Ohio State can establish their ground game and then take advantage of some of Don Brown's blitzes offensively. On defense, shut down the Michigan running game. Michigan might hit a few big pass plays, not really be able to get a consistent flow, though, when Shea Patterson's under constant pressure and the defense is able to drop 7 guys on every play. So my final score is 48-14 Ohio State.
Wow.
Yeah, I was in a similar vein. I have Ohio State winning 42-17. I don't know if Michigan's going to score that much because I think they might get a field goal in there somewhere. I don't know if all their scoring drives were just going to end in touchdowns. That's why I threw the field goal in there, just because something could happen at Ann Arbor. And I don't know if Ohio State is going to score that much just because I'm unsure what the weather is going to be like, but I still think Ohio State's going to take control of the game pretty easily. I kind of liken it to how Ohio State won in 2015, where they pretty much dominated the entire game in Ann Arbor after losing to Michigan State.
Yeah. So. If I remember correctly, I think I said 38-14 or something along those lines is what I believe the score will be around. I don't know. I just
If you
feel
want to update it, you can.
I kind of like that score, though. 38-14 sounds about right to me.
I thought you were like 38-21.
Was it that? 38-21, 38-14, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Actually, yeah, you're right. It was 38-21.
Because I remember our scores were very close and similar.
Yeah. So 38-21 is my score prediction. And I don't know. I just have a feeling that Ohio State's going to jump out to an early lead. And I feel like this will be a game similar to Penn State where the score doesn't really tell the whole picture of the game. I feel like Ohio State would dominate from start to finish, but Michigan may get a couple of garbage time touchdowns or a couple scores off of maybe a sloppy turnover or something like that.
Yeah. I'm going to go with the closest margin here at a 31-20 victory for the Buckeyes. Second straight 11-point victory.
I would like that. A close classic game.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting and get to see. Yeah. We'll be at the Big House, and it's I think all of our first times in the Big House.
Yeah.
So
that is a fact.
I have been to the Big House before.
There you go.
Brian,
I
why'd you have to ruin it?
Right?
You know what?
We get to experience that atmosphere for the first time, Brian.
You could
Listen.
have lied, Brian.
Okay, look. I was like 10, so I don't really remember it.
Oh, no, try to backpedal.
Right,
You ruined it.
You ruined
it, man.
Blame my family. They took me to a Notre Dame Michigan game in the Big
You didn't
House.
have to tell us, though.
But my parents would call me out on it.
Look at Brian, scared of his parents. Wow.
Listen, I'm
On
just...
that note.
Hey, don't be mean, guys. I'm just telling the truth here. You don't lie in journalism. You tell the truth on this podcast.
This is not journalism. This is the best damn pod in the land. Okay.
That's factual.
The best journalism ever. Best damn pod in the land, best damn journalism. You know, that's how it works, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
While we're off topic, did anyone see the immaculate human ingenuity that I possessed in making this one?
Yeah, I know. You're.
I like it.
you're.
Yes.
I always saw you feeling with that.
Griffin is winning today. Brian is losing.
I'm a regular
Wow.
whiz.
Just piling on me. I'm still sick, by the way. We tried recording it yesterday, and I literally fell asleep on the couch in the newsroom because I just was so tired and about to throw up. And now they're just piling in. Yeah.
Well, anyway, folks, it's been lovely chatting with you all.
Oh, Griffin's just trying to close it out.
I'm hungry.
Yeah.
I want to see my family.
I made
No, we're
new-
staying here
made
all
news.
night.
I've been stressed as all get out, whether it's
Whoa.
been
Stressed to the gills.
stressed to the gills, whether it's been the rivalry edition or today
It's
or
been
my
a busy week, folks.
all
or my
out great.
personal life, which is
Well, that's a whole nother story.
That's a whole
Whole
nother-
nother podcast.
They'll
That's
have a
a-
whole nother podcast just solely on the personal life of the one and only Andy
It'll
Anders.
just be one-on-one, me and Griffin sitting in a room just saying,
We're going to have mood
10,
lighting.
just asking 10 questions that are all tell us how you feel.
We're so
about
off
that.
topic, guys.
And I think that's a good indication that we're about out of time here at the Best Damn Pod
Exactly.
Land.
Okay, all right. Let me do the outro then. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. If you're still with us, we're sorry for being such clowns, but we're having a lot of fun here. We hope you had fun too. So thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned for our coverage of the game, and we'll see you next week for the preview of the Big Ten Championship. Peace.
See ya.
Peace out.